In 2019, YouTube was caught violating the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA. Since settling, YouTube has enacted new policies that are meant to serve as a smokescreen so they can dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators. As such, for my own protection, it is my obligation to advise you that this video is not aimed at children. My target audience is not children. Parental discretion is advised. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. Today we are looking at The Diary of River Song Series 8, released in January of 2021, directed by Ken Bentley. The Diary of River Song Series 8 once again stars Alex Kingston as River Song and features John Leeson, Derek Griffiths, Jane Slavin, Joe Sims, and Nicholas Briggs as the Mechonoids. As always, I will be talking spoilers. I've decided to give up just trying to skirt around them because I'm not good at it. So in the description box below, you'll find the link to Big Finish's website where you can buy The Diary of River Song Series 8. And right off the bat, first of all, I want to apologize for this one being so late. I would also like to say this is not my first attempt at recording this video. Every time I tried to do it, I'd get so hung up on the first story that the video would just kind of stop dead. So I always have to stop and start over. But going into this, I want to say that Series 8 is actually really good. It is a huge step up from Series 7, which was okay, but overall, I would deem one of the weaker sets in the range. This one, I'd say, is probably somewhere in the middle if I was to rank them all, which I probably won't do until like Series 10 or so. But this is definitely a huge improvement from the, while having decent moments, from the pretty lackluster Series 7. Which is kind of amazing given the production pains this one kind of went through. We kind of have a season 23 situation going on here. Not quite as bad as the situation with season 23 got, but essentially what happened is there was a different plan in place for Series 9. Scripts were already submitted, everything was getting underway, and then the pandemic and lockdown hit. So, as David Richardson says in the making of for Series 8, excuse me, he sort of realized what they had plans for Series 9 would not Series 8. Wow. So, in the making of for Series 8, David Richardson said that what they had planned would not work in lockdown. It would not work from the at home setups the actors and crew had been using. They needed a full studio. So, the original plan for Series 8 was scrapped, presumably to be revisited later. We'll see what happens. And this new Series 8 featuring River and Robobts came into play. Which, again, just as I want to circle back around, given the production of Series 8, it's amazing this one came out as good as it did. There's 4 stories in this set, and I'm kind of changing my format to these a little bit because, like everything else, The Diary of River Song has sort of ditched individual covers. So this set features Slight Glimpses of Tomorrow by James Goss, I think it was. Yes, James Goss. A Brave New World by Tracy Ann Baines, A Forever Home by Alfie Shaw, and Queen of the Mechonoids by Jonathan Morris. Slight Glimpses of Tomorrow opens us off, and this story, as a welcome surprise, because it wasn't in any of the promotional material, features Rachel. Yeah, Rachel's back. She was a character introduced in Series 2. She played a major role in John Dorney's story, 529. Possibly the bleakest thing he's ever written, and it's a brilliant story. Anyway, in that story, Rachel is an android, and she was created to be used by an old couple to have a child, to be their daughter. And the implication at the start of this story is that after the events of 529 and Series 2 as a whole, everyone Rachel knew has died. So River has sort of circled back around, and now she's trying to teach Rachel to cope with eternity. Ooh, I should have brought that up. Rachel is also played by Salome Hertel. Hertel? Hartel? she's Alex Kingston's daughter, and their scenes together really show that River is obviously very protective of Rachel, and, Kingston being Hartel's mother, I'm sorry, um, the chemistry between them really works. Salome Hartel's acting has also improved tremendously. In series 2, her acting was very awkward, it felt very forced, but it worked for the character because Rachel is that sci-fi archetype of the android who wants to be human. And I felt that her awkwardness, her unease, her still learning the craft, really lended itself to the performance. Here, it feels the performance is much stronger. Like, she's obviously learned a lot. So rather than it just being a side effect of inexperience, it feels intentional, which also really improves it. So, as I said, River is trying to teach Rachel to cope with humanity. And in doing so, she takes her to this planet, which is never named, to experience its history. She uses the vortex manipulator to take it through time. And this premise is really the star of the story because, Rachel meets an early scientist and then sees what happens to this civilization when that science is lost. She and ultimately the track this civilization is on devastates Rachel so badly to the point that she steals River's vortex manipulator and tries to constantly go back and change time. And there's also a really great moment for River here as well. River, after the initial setup, River takes a back seat for most of this story, and the story focuses on Rachel, which is really fascinating because you get to see, what she's learning and how it affects her and how she's starting to feel emotions. And River has an interesting point because, like I said, while River and the Doctor do share moral codes, Rivers is much more murky. She's willing to do things the Doctor wouldn't consider. Stick a pin in that because we will talk about that in a couple stories. But anyway, and the ending is really nice too. So River takes Rachel back to where they initially started, at the end of this planet's life. And when Rachel's devastated to learn that everything she did was for nothing, it wasn't. Because rather than this planet dying out, the advances and the science and the history that Rachel worked so hard to protect has now helped the humans on this planet, let's just call them humans, build spaceships and set off to colonize new planets. Slight Glimpses of Tomorrow is, simply put, beautiful. And there's really not much more to say to that. It's a beautiful story that focuses on one character learning about the importance of preserving history and finding her humanity in the process. And we have a first here for the Diary of River Song, as the opening stories are actually a two-parter. River and Rachel's story is continued in A Brave New World by Tracy Ann Baines. So this story picks up immediately where the first one left off. River and Rachel find one of these colony ships and try to integrate into the crew to try and help them reach their destination. Sorry, I can't speak today. And colonize a new world. Because Rachel has, in going through time and trying to save this world, Rachel has grown very protective of it. So, and this story starts off really good with meeting the crew and getting the setup and everything. And then it just, really fast, it just jumps off a cliff and it doesn't ever truly recover. So the way this colony ship is functioning is a few people are taken out of stasis to serve as the crew, tend to the ship, assist the computer, and live out their natural lives, at which point the computer will awaken more crew members from stasis. The crew members currently selected see an opportunity to use Rachel. They hook her into the computer and have her do their jobs so they can go back in stasis and arrive in the new world. Only one of the the currently serving crew members, a boy named Aaron, um, refuses to participate and he's forced into stasis. And it's right at this point, where the crew goes into stasis and leaves Rachel to tend to the ship, that the story immediately starts its downward spiral. So, scenes of Rachel tending the ship are intercut with River on her doing her own thing. Because River cannot be on the ship. The life support systems cannot support more than 3 people at a time. And that's part of it too, because Rachel is a synthetic, she doesn't need to use life support. So before she leaves, River says, "You can contact me through my vortex manipulator if you need my help." So, while Rachel's tending the ship, it's intercut with scenes of totally just blank, sorry. It's intercut with scenes of River doing her own thing, going on her own adventures, and even meeting up with the Doctor in a fun little cameo. I was slightly disappointed because it was kind of teasing that it was going to be the War Doctor. It's not, but that's okay. That's not the main point of the story. And it's very clear that this section of the story is meant to serve as a montage, because when Rachel realizes something's wrong and calls River to come back and help, 400 years will have passed for the colony ship. And it's very clear that these intercut scenes are meant to be a montage. It doesn't work. Nothing engaging happens. Nothing interesting happens. And unfortunately, by this point, because of that, once the plot does start get going again, it couldn't pull me back in. I started off really engaged, then the montage sort of pulled me out of the story, and what was left of the story couldn't pull me back in. And yeah, which is a shame, because there's some good stuff here. Like, I like the bond between Aaron and Rachel. One of the other people who reviewed this series, hi Jacob, said that the story seemed to imply Aaron was also a synthetic. On my re-listen, I could see where you'd come from with that, but I personally don't think that was the case, because it never goes that far, because Aaron's still, because, wow, I cannot speak today. So, one of my friends who reviewed the series pointed out that the story seemed to imply Aaron was also a synthetic. I disagree. I don't think that story ever got that far, because the computer says that life support can only support 3 people, and River is obviously too much of a strain for it. There were other things I was going to say, or how their civilization said that they'd begun looking into synthetics, but, synthetic people, androids, but the projects were put on halt to focus on the colony ships. Just something I wanted to get out there. But yeah, it's, as the story goes on, it's clear that Aaron is falling in love with Rachel, and Rachel is kind of, as an android, thinking she's in love with Aaron. But the Hartel and the other actor, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, their chemistry is cute, but, in that cutesy, lovey-dovey kids kind of way, but I don't actually buy it. Yeah, no, A Brave New World works better as a 2-parter with slight glimpses of tomorrow, but on its own, it kind of, as I said, falls apart really fast after that first third, and it just never seems to recover. A Forever Home by Alfie Shaw. This was one of the major advertising points for Series 8. This story features a team-up between River Song and K9. As the story opens, River is adopted by K9 and his counterpart, Feline, which is either spelled Fe- or Fe-line. I like to think it's the former. Anyway, so River is, treated like a pet, when she has to live in a carrier, she wakes up at a set time, she has to go to sleep at a set time, she's fed wet food. three times a day. But, you know, between all this, K9 tells her that she was involved in some sort of fiasco, some sort of clash between the Doctor and the Master, and as such, she's been poisoned by it. So the Doctor has created a time loop to help River recover, and the slop she's been eating, the wet food, is her medicine. It's her treatment. Or is it really? So yeah, pretty early on, it's found out that everything River has been told is a sham. The Doctor isn't here. The Master isn't here. She's being held by a man named Drix, who is using her to treat a sickness of his own. And, it turns out this is not the real K9. These are copies Drix built to do his bidding. And first of all, John Leeson is really great here. The K9s, the various evil K9s, really let him show off his sinister side, which is really good. And even when the real K9 shows up, he's still really good there. I like his banter with River. I like their exchanges. It's kind of hilarious, like when she introduces herself to K9, she introduces herself as the Doctor's wife. K9, of course, responds, "The Doctor would never do that." And River says, "Oh, he married me to stop the fabric of reality from unraveling and destroying it, all of creation." And K9 accepts it. It's so good. Wow, I'm sorry. I am blanking really hard again. And I also like that it's K9 Mark III that River meets because, well, brief history on K9. K9, the Doctor initially met K9 while traveling with Leela. When Leela left the TARDIS, he let K9 go with her. And then he built K9 Mark II, which traveled with him and Romana. And when Romana left the TARDIS, he gave her K9. And then, not in Doctor Who, but there was an attempt at a spin-off called K9 and Company, of which only one episode was ever produced. And at the beginning, or at least I think the halfway point of that episode, Sarah Jane Smith receives K9 Mark III. So the story here is that the villain of this story, Drix, intercepted K9 Mark III and started, built his duplicates, his blueprints based off, K9, the original K9. And Drix is also a really good villain. He gives a fantastic, unsettling performance, as this sort of, once he gets sick, he begins to grow really paranoid. He shuns his, I think they're his students, he said. And, he turns on them in really horrifying ways. And even what he did to Feline is awful. Feline was a woman once, one of his students. And when all of the, and, in order to help them treat this disease he had, the same disease he gave to River in hopes of finding a cure, he gave this woman, I think her name was Emily, it was Amelia, I remember now. And when she died from this disease, he preserved her body, he preserved her consciousness as an artificial intelligence. Like, he is absolutely sick. And the ending of this story, as I talked about, is glorious. Like, I love when River gets the chance to be bloodthirsty. And oh my god, she is so frightening in this story's finale. So she puts Drix in a carrier, similar to the pet carrier she was forced to live in. And then she disables the alphanumeric locking system so that there's no code to unlock it. And then she has K9, one of the last remaining K9 duplicates, stand by to watch over him as a contingency in case he escapes. And that's where the story ends. It ends with that K9 saying, "Now we wait." Oh my god, like I just said, I love Bloodthirsty River. And, there's a lot about A Forever Home I haven't talked about because not a lot happens. But in this particular sense, that's not a bad thing because the attention on the plot and the characters is really well executed. And the Diary of River Song Series 8 concludes with Queen of the Mechonoids by Jonathan Morris. Now, this story is also supposed to tie into the upcoming 10th Doctor epic, Dalek Universe. A storyline I don't have any particular interest in. If you do, that's awesome. I just don't. I'm sorry. And it features the return of, well, the Mechonoids, a robot type first appearing in the first Doctor story, The Chase, Ian and Barbara's final story, and then appearing only one other time in the sixth Doctor audio, The Juggernauts, which I really should have revisited before doing this, but that's neither here nor there. So Queen of the Mechonoids is a tie-in to Dalek Universe, and this story also sees the return of Anya Kingdom from the Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 8, played by Jane Slavin, who, as soon as I heard her, I just went, oh, I missed you. And this time around, she is joined by an android named Mark 7, played by Joe Sims. I was initially disappointed by this, and with Dalek Universe, because it's like, why not Jodor Colwyn, the other Space Security Service agent we met in the finale to the Fourth Doctor Adventure Series 8, The Perfect Prisoners. But then someone pointed out that Mark 7 was going to be a character in Terry Nation's originally proposed Dalek spinoff. So, I've actually kind of let that one go. So in this story, Mark and Anya answer a distress call from River, where on this sort of frozen planet, and they find that she has been sort of serviced by the Mechonoids as she's been waiting for pickup. And as the story goes on, they meet River discovers that the Mechonoids have been unknowingly harboring a notorious criminal warlord from Earth's past, Annam Hennick, played by Derek Griffiths. And he mentions how he was once a member of the Earth Council and he turned against them. And his ship was destroyed when he was fleeing. But when he came across the Mechonoids, they preserved him the only way they could, by putting him in a Mechonoid. This story's okay. It's just, like I said, I feel like a lot of it is build up to Dalek Universe, and I feel like a lot of the payoff for these plot lines, they're gonna be Dalek Universe is where that payoff is gonna be, and I'm just not interested in it. It's fine on its own. All of the cast, which this also on the cover, this is where most of the billing on the cover, this is where most of the billing in the cast comes from, this one story. The Mechonoids are fine, just there's not a lot you can do with them. Even in the chase, they only showed up for, I think, an episode, and what you see here is pretty much the role they were relegated to there. They're not really expanded upon. I wish I could comment on the Juggernauts, but it's been so long since I've listened to it, I really need to again. But yeah, this story is good. It's got all of the cast gives great performances. It's just nothing. It's a stronger story. I'm sorry, I'm talking in circles. Oh, it's been a while since I've reviewed a box set as well, so I'm kind of out of practice. But yeah, that's all I can say. Queen of the Mechonoids is fine. It's good. It's got a good story. Some good action sequences. All of the great performances. All of the characters are really good and play off each other really well. I really did end up liking Mark 7, I should say. But, it's nothing spectacular. And, I opened with my overall thoughts on Series 8 as a whole, so I'll kind of end with just my personal ranking for the stories. So at the bottom, it would be A Brave New World, and then Queen of the Mechonoids, a Forever Home, and my favorite story in this set was Slight Glimpses of Tomorrow. But, like I said, with the exception of Forever Home, The Diary of River Song Series 8 is really solid, and I would recommend checking this one out. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Have you heard The Diary of River Song Series 8? Start a comment in the comments below. Remember to like, start a comment, start a conversation in the comments below, and remember to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below, you will find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time.